Food safety scandals are nothing new to us, as we're living in a society where our food supply is increasingly becoming more adulterated and heavily processed with questionable ingredients, as we have covered on these videos. The sanitary conditions in how our foods are produced is also a key factor in the overall quality of our food.
Every year, almost 2 million Americans get food poisoning caused by salmonella. The vast majority of cases are isolated and routine.
I think people don't really understand the anatomy of an outbreak. The first few cases that come in are not even associated with an outbreak. It's not until you get a sufficient number of cases that it actually becomes apparent that there is really an outbreak going on.
Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimates that about 48 million people get sick, 128,000 are hospitalized, and 3,000 die each year from foodborne pathogens in the United States.
However, the world really takes notice when a food safety scandal becomes fatal. In this video, we're going to cover the worst food safety scandals that have cost lives. But before we get started, make sure to subscribe and click on the bell icon. Too many of our viewers haven't clicked on the bell icon. Once you click on the bell icon, you will be notified of our new video uploads. Also, make sure to like the video and share this with others. Okay, let's get right to it. Number 1. The China milk scandal. Easily one of the biggest scandals of all time, and number 1 on this list is the infamous China milk scandal of 2008. It all started when 16 infants from the Gansu province of China were suspiciously found to have kidney stones. After more investigation, it turns out that the Sanitary group's infant formula and milk were intentionally being adulterated with a toxic industrial chemical known as melamine. This was done to increase the protein levels in the diluted milk in order to pass the quality control test. Ultimately, this act of evil greed affected up to 300,000 children, with 54,000 of them being hospitalized and costing the lives of 6 babies. This does not even include the affected children that continue to have health problems caused by the scandal even years after. We covered the scandal in depth on this video, so if you're interested to learn more about it. Number 2. The US cantaloupe outbreak. We all been advised that consuming fruits is part of maintaining a healthy diet, but not when it's contaminated with Listeria monocytogenes, which is a bacteria that causes infection known as listeriosis. According to this chart from CDC, Listeria is the 3rd leading cause of fatalities from foodborne illnesses.
Listeria outbreak caused by tainted cantaloupes has now been linked to at least 23 deaths. That makes it the deadliest outbreak of foodborne illness in the U.S. in more than 25 years. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says that 116 people have been sickened in the outbreak. That includes people who've died. That number may grow because symptoms of Listeria can take up to 2 months to appear. The tainted cantaloupe should be off store shelves. They were traced back to a Colorado farm, which recalled them last month. The Food and Drug Administration is still investigating the cause of the outbreak. Officials are looking at the farm's water supply and say it could come from animals. Government health officials said this was the first known outbreak of Listeria in cantaloupe. Listeria generally is found in processed meats and unpasteurized milk and cheese.
And that's exactly what happened in July of 2011, when cantaloupe grown on a farm in Colorado was discovered to have contained this lethal bacteria and has spread to multiple states. Authorities traced this outbreak back to Jensen Farms, where the cause was likely due to unsanitary conditions on the farm. Ultimately, this food safety scandal had 147 confirmed cases and has spread to 28 states and resulted in 33 deaths and caused a pregnant woman to have a miscarriage.
The new warning from the country's leading health experts. It is about that cantaloupe and the outbreak of Listeria, officially the deadliest food crisis in America in more than 10 years. Linked to cantaloupe from that farm in Colorado. And ABC's Sharon Alfonsi tracked the investigation all day today.
In labs across the country tonight, food investigators are working around the clock, trying to track the spread of the deadliest Listeria outbreak in a decade. It's believed the bad cantaloupes came from here, Jensen Farms in Holly, Colorado. The cantaloupes in question were shipped from July 29th through September 10th. We contacted that farm today, and they told us they shipped at a minimum more than 1.5 million cantaloupe during that time to more than 24 states. Today, public health officials assured the public all the bad cantaloupes have been recalled from grocery shelves, but warned it doesn't mean we're in the clear. Not when you're dealing with Listeria.
You'll ingest the small number of Listeria. They don't make you sick right away.
In fact, it can take 2 months before you experience the symptoms. 2 months after eating the cantaloupe and ingesting just trace amounts of listeria, you can develop fever and muscle aches. Antibiotics can treat you, but without treatment, the illness can leave its victims incapacitated and unable to speak. Most at risk, pregnant women, the elderly, and those with compromised immune systems. Especially worrying to doctors because most people don't realize they've been poisoned until they become very ill.
There's no way of knowing that if we have swallowed the listeria and it's kind of smoldering around in our intestinal tracts. There's no way to know that.
Number 3, the U.S. Peanut Corporation outbreak in America. As someone that has a peanut allergy, I avoid peanuts like it was the plague. But peanuts contaminated with salmonella, forget about it. This outbreak began in 2008 when reports of people that consume peanuts from the U.S. Peanut Corporation, or PCA, based out of Georgia, were being infected with salmonella. According to the CDC, the likely cause once again was due to unsanitary conditions at the processing facilities. Investigations conducted by the authorities in multiple states that the outbreak had spread to concluded that most likely the salmonella was spread through peanut butter that was distributed by the PCA. These were shipped to schools, elderly care facilities, hospitals, and other institutions. The result of this deadly salmonella peanut butter outbreak was 714 infected persons in 46 states and may have contributed to 9 deaths. No wonder the PCA is no longer in business today.
In Blakely, Georgia, this peanut processing plant is now a crime scene in what investigators suspect was a preventable threat spreading through America's food chain. Peanut Corporation of America, or PCA, owns this closed plant. Inside, FDA inspectors found roaches, mold, a leaking roof. And at least a dozen times since 2007, FDA documents show plant officials knew peanut products had salmonella contamination. But instead of throwing them away, the company allegedly retested them and then shipped them into the food supply.
Knowingly putting salmonella-contaminated food into the marketplace potentially puts the public at risk. That's correct.
But the FDA's handling of the case is also under scrutiny for missing possible red flags that might have stopped the outbreak. In mid-September last year, on the U.S.-Canadian border, a shipment of chopped peanuts from PCA, described as filthy, putrid, decomposing, unfit for food, and later shown to include metal fragments, was sent to Canada, which rejected it. The FDA then flagged it and sent it back to Georgia. The plant eventually destroyed it, but the FDA never inspected the facility.
Number 4, Chi-Chi's hepatitis A outbreak.
Get a chimichanga, taco, enchilada, plus 7-piece dessert plate. At $7.99, it's worth celebrating.
Chi-Chi's celebration of food.
One might question, how the heck does hepatitis A get into our food? This is going to make you want to lose your appetite, so you're going to want to get ready for this. If someone infected with hepatitis A goes to the bathroom and handles their business without washing their hands, then proceeds to prepare food with those dirty hands, that is how hepatitis A will find its way into your food. Well, this scenario played out in October of 2003 when people that ate at Chi-Chi's restaurant at the Beaver Valley Mall in Pennsylvania became infected with hepatitis A. After an investigation conducted by the FDA, it was concluded that the raw green onions imported from Mexico was the source of the outbreak. Because of this, over 650 people were affected and 4 people were lost due to liver failure caused by the hepatitis A.
Suspects that someone, probably an employee, spread the hepatitis virus by not washing their hands after going to the bathroom.
Sign on Chi-Chi's in Beaver County is clear. The restaurant is closed. Chi-Chi says it plans to reopen within the next 72 hours with the approval of health officials. If you ate at this Chi-Chi's anytime within the last 14 days, the health message is, see your doctor. This incident, by the way, underlines the importance of a new food code going into effect soon that bars bare hands, washed or not washed, from touching ready-to-eat food.
Up to 9,000 people that ate at the restaurant who were potentially exposed to the virus had to receive immune globulin shots. Number 5, the U.S. Bluebell Creameries outbreak. Do you remember the Listeria moldicida genes?
Listeria is an infectious bacteria carried by animals that can be transferred to food, like the milk used in ice cream, and it can live and grow in freezers. Most serious in people with weak immune systems, the elderly, newborns, and pregnant women. Symptoms include muscle aches, nausea, and fever. 1 in 5 infected can die.
Well, we covered that number 2. Imagine having this in your ice cream. Sounds like a nightmare, doesn't it? Well, it's a nightmare that came true in 2015.
There's a massive recall tonight involving one of the most popular brands of ice cream nationwide. Grocery stores in 23 states are dumping millions of gallons of Blue Bell, and families are being urged to check their freezers and do the same. Fears about a potentially deadly bacteria prompting one of the widest recalls of a product ever.
Blue Bell pulled from store shelves today. The company recalled 8 million gallons of ice cream, every flavor and every product it makes. Samples tested positive for listeria. 3 deaths in Kansas are linked to the Oklahoma facility.
The ice cream produced by the Blue Bell creameries was contaminated with the Listeria monocyclades, and upon sickening multiple consumers, resulted in a nationwide recall. The recall unfortunately came too late for 10 people that were hospitalized, and 3 people died as a result.
The company is recalling everything after an outbreak of listeria. The bacterium has killed 3 people and made 7 others sick in Arizona, Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas.
Lois Porter is still reeling from the death of her husband Richard last year. He'd been taken to a Kansas hospital for intestinal problems when his health quickly began deteriorating. Richard Porter was one of 5 patients at a Kansas hospital who contracted listeria over a 1-year period. After 3 of the patients died, state health officials determined they had all been served Blue Bell ice cream. Listeria was listed as a contributing factor in their deaths.
Once again, authorities believe it was due to ineffective cleaning and the sanitation at the facilities where the ice cream was produced.
Gerald Bland, who worked at the Blue Bell factory in Brenham, Texas, described to CBS News unsanitary conditions on the factory floor.
Workers would leave the ice cream pooling on the floor, creating an environment where bacteria can flourish. He complained to supervisors, but nothing was done.
The response I got at one point was, is that all you're going to do is come in here and bitch every afternoon?
What do you think his message to you was?
Production is probably more important than cleanliness.
It was a culture of keep your mouth shut and do your job.
Yeah, pretty much. That probably did in a nutshell.
It's all about the money.
Thank you for sticking around to the end of the video, and we hope we have provided you with valuable insight on what to look out for when shopping at the supermarket. Please support us by subscribing, liking the video, and share this with your friends. We really need and appreciate your support. Until then, stay informed, and Genius Tomato out.